Module 1. Listening 1. Critical Thinking for Listening. Part 1. Hello students, welcome to Melbourne University. My name is Ronaldo Cervantes and I'm from the Student Counselling Service here at Melbourne University. I'm going to give you some ideas and important information about making a successful transition to Melbourne University. Now, most likely you are feeling overwhelmed by and are in awe of the size of the university, the complexity of the place, particularly if you are on the main campus. To begin with, familiarise yourself with the campus and all the buildings where you are required to be. After this presentation, use the map in your orientation pack and walk around the campus to get your bearings. Also, familiarise yourself with other important facilities on campus, such as the library, the student centre, your faculty office and student support services. There are also a number of excellent cafes and canteens, as well as state-of-the-art sporting amenities at Melbourne. All students will be introduced to the Melbourne University's portal, Our Uni, during orientation, and you will be connected instantly to all Melbourne's administrative needs for international students. At this stage, I presume the majority of you have completed all applications and submissions for your bachelor course at Melbourne University. Remember, when choosing your subjects, choose the subjects that are relevant for your needs. Don't presume anything in this area. I strongly recommend you ask for advice or support from our efficient student services team. They are working alongside the lecturers and can provide all information that you require. Keep this in mind when choosing the timetable. If you are an early bird like myself and more proactive in the mornings, select times that work for you and your mental body clock. There is nothing worse than sitting in a lecture hall and not being able to focus on the subject because you're still in sleep mode or just too tired. This brings me to my next point, which is time management. It is important to be well organised and manage your time efficiently, particularly if you are working or have other commitments in your personal life. Make a timetable for your semester and plan your life around this. Mark in important study dates, such as assignment deadlines and exam dates. Also include your work schedule, if appropriate, and schedule in time to relax. It is vital for your well-being at Melbourne University to include relaxation, as this will help you to cope with the demands of academic study. Expectations regarding your workload and assignments are higher than what you have encountered before, so be prepared to challenge yourself. Part 2. Maybe in your past you have frowned upon asking for support because of peer pressure or just shyness. Here at Melbourne, we expect all students to use student services. Each year, finances are administered in this area to improve and upgrade services and facilities that meet students' needs. We do expect that some of you will struggle in the first year, and the remaining years will also see hurdles in your progression of academic life. It's important not to panic and give up. Ask for help. It is available for both academic issues and any personal issues that may arise while you are here. Many students, both overseas and local students, have benefited from using counselling services. It is also important to make friends and build on those relationships. At Melbourne, we have many social clubs and student societies that you can join. You can make new friends here and share your academic and other experiences with them. Many lifelong friendships are formed in your university life, not to mention the contacts you could make to benefit your future career. I'd like to talk to you a little more about what is expected from an academic perspective. At university, students are treated as adults and are expected to take responsibility for completing and submitting assignments on time. The style of learning here may also be different to what you are used to. For example, you will be attending lectures, tutorials and seminars. You are expected to be prepared to participate actively in tutorials. There is a lot of reading to do to prepare for these. As you read, write down questions you have so that you can ask them in the tutorial. Your lecturer may require you to work in groups with other students to complete presentations in seminars. This is a very common form of assessment, and you are expected to work together proactively with your team, share the workload, and present your information professionally. As well as managing your time efficiently, you need to manage your stress levels. Your classmates are going to be a part of your daily life for the next few years, so arranging study groups or personal activities will help you do this. As mentioned before, taking time to relax is beneficial for your studies. Consider scheduling in regular exercise and entertainment to help you de-stress. Being part of a community encourages healthy relationships and balance in your life. If you feel that stress is building up, take a look at your current workload. In most cases, you can rectify your study timetable to a more convenient and less stressful pattern. Don't allow yourself to panic about assignments. Remember, each assignment is worth a small percentage of your overall grade, and we also offer academic support if required. The basis of academic support is to supplement your tutorials and lectures. The staff can help you to understand what exactly is required for writing assignments and guide you in the right direction. It also allows you to look at the big picture of all your timetabled assignments and how you can manage this effectively and confidently. To finish, please remember there is an array of support services available for you to take advantage of. So, familiarise yourself with the campus and all the services. Get organised early, and don't be afraid to get help if you need it. We hope you will enjoy your academic life here with us at Melbourne University. Once again, welcome and good luck. Listening to Note-taking. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Week 1 of Critical Thinking. I would like to start the course by looking at the course outline. Next, I will discuss student learning outcomes. What do we mean by this? Well, student learning outcomes are simply the key knowledge and skills you are expected to obtain by successfully completing this course. I will move on and discuss how you will be assessed and what assignments you need to complete. And finally, we will get into the main aim of today's lecture, which is to introduce you to the core concepts in critical thinking. So, let's begin with the course outline. As you are aware, this is a 12-week course. The lecture content of Week 1 is, as I have just mentioned, the core concepts of critical thinking. After this lecture, I strongly recommend that you read the introductory chapter of the prescribed text as a review. In Week 2, we will focus on critical reading skills. This includes questioning as you read and developing effective note-taking skills. You will also be introduced to the Reading Reaction Journal, as your first assignment will be to critically read and react to given texts. Chapter 2 of the text is your point of reference for Week 2. Learning what constitutes plagiarism and how to avoid it is the topic of Week 3's lecture. Understanding, summarising and paraphrasing texts can help you to avoid plagiarism. Week 3 gives you the opportunity to read and analyse summary and paraphrase attempts, with a view to helping you understand what is acceptable and unacceptable. You will then practice and evaluate yourselves with written tasks. Moving on to learning outcomes. By the end of this 12-week course, you'd be expected to be able to present your ideas using the conventions of formal writing. Be able to confidently recognise, summarise and paraphrase a writer's ideas and opinions while avoiding plagiarism in a formal academic genre. Be able to present a critical response to a writer's ideas, both in discussion and in a formal academic writing genre. Be able to give concise oral summaries of a writer's ideas and then partake in discussion using higher level critical thinking skills. Throughout the course, you will have many opportunities to practice using core critical thinking skills. Naturally, your assessment tasks relate directly to these outcomes. Let me continue now with a brief description of these tasks. There are 6 types of assessment, including formal written assessment, presentation, and participation in discussion. They are reading reaction journal, an academic referencing essay, an individual presentation, a group presentation with discussion, a written critique, a final exam. Check the online course information for details about assessment weighting. At this point, I'd just like to remind you that your participation in tutorials will be assessed, so it is essential that you prepare by reading the prescribed chapters from texts so you have something to say in discussion. So, after all that, let's begin today's lecture, which will cover the core concepts in critical thinking. Listening 3. Understanding lectures. Part 1. We are going to define some core concepts in critical thinking. In order to do this, we need first to understand what critical thinking actually is. We will define and discuss key terms such as fact, opinion, generalization, and bias. Understanding these concepts will enable you to think critically when listening in lectures and tutorials, when reading academic texts, and when preparing written work for assessment. So what exactly do we mean by critical thinking? Critical thinking is a skill that involves coming up with and considering new perspectives on issues and ideas. It involves making the shift from just reading and understanding the meaning of words in a text to recognizing, understanding, analyzing, and evaluating the underlying meaning or the message of the text, the writer's opinions, and the way the text has been written. Always start by asking yourself some basic questions to activate your critical thinking process. Some examples of questions you may consider are: what kind of text is it? Is it an essay, a research paper, a journal article, a page from a website? Who wrote it and for what purpose? Examples of purpose include to inform, to give advice, to persuade, or to convince. How is the text written? Note its structure, its style and tone. Also, think about what has not been included and why. When and where was the text produced? It is important to consider these because they provide background and context to the text and its ideas. Insight into the writer's cultural influences, values and attitudes of the society at that point in time and at that place can also be gained. In short, always question the topic or text in this manner. Remaining doubtful will push you to question facts, opinions, and inferences. Part 2. I'd like to turn to fact and opinion now. In practicing critical reading or thinking, it is essential to differentiate between facts and opinions. Writing contains both fact and opinion. Let's look at the basic difference. According to the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary, a fact is something that is known to be true and/or can be proven to be true or correct. A fact cannot be disputed. It has normally been established by scientific research or by centuries of public acceptance. Everyone agrees that it is true. For instance, the sun rises in the eastern sky. Everyone knows this is true. Smoking is bad for your health. This has been established by scientific research. The Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary provides us with the following definition for opinion: your feelings or thoughts about somebody or something rather than fact, the beliefs or views of a group of people, legal, medical, political, or public opinion. An opinion is open to argument. Not everyone agrees with it. Opinions can be hard or even impossible to prove. Here are some examples. Spring in Europe is always beautiful. Is it always beautiful? If you suffer from hay fever, you may not think so. Women are better flight attendants than men. Gambling is a life-destroying habit. You can see that it is easy to dispute these opinion statements. Opinions reveal the writer's feelings or beliefs on a topic, and words such as think, believe, seems, or should indicate the writer's opinion. Why are facts important? In the legal system, lawyers build cases for their clients and provide evidence or facts in order to persuade the jury to favour their client. A strong legal case is one that has support in the form of evidence or facts. So too, in academic discussion or writing, facts are essential to help build a strong argument. In order to be persuasive and convincing, the writer or speaker must present evidence that will make readers or listeners believe they are correct. If an opinion is provided without such support, readers or listeners will not be convinced. Listening 4. Academic culture shock. How did it feel being in a multicultural academic environment?
At first it was so scary, but really exciting at the same time. I was very depressed at the beginning of my course because I felt overwhelmed. Slowly, as I gained confidence in my English, I began to understand and accept these cultural differences. I had a lot of support from fellow students and peers. The lecturers were patient and compassionate. For me, it was motivating to learn about all aspects of English to keep up with the other students.
Really? What do you mean exactly?
Well, sometimes we had trouble communicating, but we kept using English until we understood each other.
I know, it's hard using a second language first. When I studied abroad, I had the same problem. What about the academic expectations?
I found that other students from different countries were experiencing the same anxieties as I was. At first, we were all confused about our lectures. We didn't really understand them.
Why was that?
The lecturers spoke quickly and used vocabulary we weren't used to. I mean, for many of us, it was our first time to study abroad, and the English sounded very different to what we learned. And critical thinking! What's this? This was a new concept which is so different from our education system back home. It took ages to apply this to our study.
So, how did you adapt to all this?
I tried to go to all my lectures and tutorials. I also talked to other students about them. I shared my lecture notes with the other students so I could try to understand what the lecturer has said. With critical thinking, I realized that it was a cultural difference that I had to accept. Just like the language, I practiced it and slowly improved.
How was your first assignment?
Not as bad as I thought. I could do it by the due date, just. I started it straight away. However, I felt sorry for some of my classmates who were used to copying from textbooks and the internet. The idea of plagiarism was new for them, and unfortunately, most of them failed their first assignments because of this.
You seem surprised by this.
Well, the teachers really drummed it into us about remembering to reference.
Yes, that's true. It's not all fun and games at uni. Before we finish, is there anything else you would like to mention?
Yes, I'm so glad I persevered with my studies. There were days when I wanted just to give up. Anyhow, I knew with time I could overcome homesickness. Getting a good job after graduating was my dream. That's why I came here.
Listening 5. Approaching a supervisor.
The first meeting with my supervisor went fine, but when I tried to arrange the next meeting, I asked Cora, but she said, just pop in when you want to see me next. This was quite tricky for me because I do not know when was a good time, or if she think I need more supervision. So I tried to come to her office. I was about to knock on the door, but the door was closed, so I do not know if she is busy. So I just do not know how to approach her.
The other day, I saw him standing outside the supervisor's office. He was about to knock, then he hesitated. So what I did was I pushed past him, knocked on the door, opened it, and said to Cora that, do you have a minute? I'm having these huge issues. I need to have a chat to you about that manuscript. I'm just really struggling to pull it all together. So that's what I usually do when I wanted to chat to her.
As I was about to knock on the door, one of the students I see here, she come and she pushed past me. She just opened the door. She goes straight into the room and not even wait for a reply. She just burst in, and I think she interrupt a meeting, and I think she would be in some serious trouble.
Well, Cora was with someone, so I told her that I'll pop in again tomorrow, like after lunch. And then she saw Sun standing behind me watching.
All my students pop in whenever they feel like they need a chat. When I saw Sun standing there, I realised it had been a few weeks since our first meeting. So I said, "Oh, Sun, it's nice to see you. It's been a while."
As I stood in the doorway, it was very awkward. So I tried to explain to her that I do not want to disturb her. I do not feel comfortable to just come and knock on the door or without an appointment time. But you see, we did not have an appointment time. I said, I think it is time that we meet again because it has been 4 weeks. Can I trouble you for an appointment time? I am not desperate because I work very hard all the time. But it has been 4 weeks.
So I said, "Oh, Sun, I'd started to wonder what happened to you. If anyone needs to see me, they just come in and say, 'Hey, help me with this,' and I'm always happy to fit you in. I'm flat out today, but I try to set aside Tuesdays completely. That's always my day. I'm always here, and it's pretty much the students' day. Why don't you come by after Min tomorrow, say at 2:30ish? I always like to treat my students the same."
Module 2. Listening 1. Censorship and the media.
Since May 2007, more than 6,000 websites in Turkey have been blocked by the censors and the courts. Some targets are political and social, like Kurdish news agencies and gay sites. Some involve music copyright, some pornography. But the ban on YouTube and finally last month parts of Google has got some Turks very worried.
This is about freedom of expression. It's a much bigger problem than a couple of websites being shut down.
The Young Civilians are a group of Turkish activists. This January, they co-opted Hillary Clinton into their protests.
The concepts of public morality, public order, shutting down sites based on these reasons is extraordinarily dangerous. Who determines public morality? It's a totalitarian mindset.
The Young Civilians specialise in satire. Their mock Google website, playing the national anthem, has a link for words you're not allowed to suggest searching for. Click on it, and their spoof site ticks you off. Didn't we say you're not even allowed to suggest?
Regulation 5651 was intended to stop access in Turkey to things like child pornography, online gambling, information about recreational drugs, and insults to the country's founding father, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. And that's where the problem started, because this law allows anyone who's offended by almost anything on the internet to lodge a complaint and get a site blocked. And that unleashed a wave of censorship.
The Atatürk Thought Society got the whole YouTube site banned in 2008 when it complained about videos alleging Atatürk was an alcoholic and gay. Professor Mustafa Akgül is one of a group of industry campaigners trying to get the bans lifted. In June, this High Court in Ankara rejected his case, and one filed separately by YouTube's owners, Google.
We feel hopeless, terrible. We keep fighting these bans every possible way we can, but we can't break through. For 20 years I've been working to advance the internet in Turkey, but the authorities just don't understand it.
Some do understand, but do nothing. Turkey's President Abdullah Gül in June used the website Twitter to criticize the ban. And even the Prime Minister's declared he knows how to get around the blocks. Those blocks are about to get worse. While in the past some users have been able to technically outwit the bans, now Turkey's internet censors are upping the stakes.
Çok daha korkunç bir yasa çıkmasından korkuyoruz. Nasıl bir yasa olabilir?
We're really afraid this is going to turn into a monster law. Sites were just banned before, but now you could end up getting your internet at home cut off.
The internet in Turkey is a business as well as a cultural and educational tool. Critics of the rolling bans say they can't understand why Turkey would shut this window on the world. Anita McNaught, Al Jazeera, Istanbul.
Listening to Bias and the Media. Part 1. Media bias is the perceived notion that certain press sources have a viewpoint and are pushing it instead of reporting news or airing programs in an objective way. The term media bias refers to media as a whole, such as a newspaper chain or a given television or radio network, instead of individual reporters or writers of television shows. It is almost impossible for any network or journalistic publication not to be accused of some media bias. Subtle things such as word choice, time limits on programming, the need to have sponsors in order to run a business, and the choice of sponsors may all lead to examples of media bias. As well, each individual who reports or writes the news has to work hard to guard against his or her own opinions. These opinions can become media bias simply through word choice or inflections and the tone of voice when delivering news. One form of media bias is failure to include varied points of view on a story. Often, this may be viewed as failing to include the opposite viewpoint. However, it would be virtually impossible to include all viewpoints on a particular issue, since people approach issues from more than two directions. For example, those belonging to non-mainstream political parties, like the Libertarians or Green Party, often feel their viewpoint is not adequately represented in journalism. This failure to represent is indeed media bias, though it may not be intentional bias. News stories simply may not have the time to cover all points of view and stick to classic sides, such as Democrat and Republican, or left and right, in an attempt to curb media bias. However, the media will still be biased since it cannot represent all points of view. Part 2. Some media bias is quite blatant. In fact, some stations or programs are known for presenting the news in a way that clearly takes a defined position. This is true of programs like The 700 Club, which interpret the news from a conservative Christian viewpoint. Some countries also present media bias programming when the government controls the media. For example, in China, certain programs are allowed while others may not be. Certain stories may be written while others must be ignored. This is an attempt to control thinking about the world in certain ways, which helps to sustain the government's control over the people. Other countries also present news in ways slanted toward a particular set of ideals. Several Islamic countries, for example, control media and slant media to glorify religious ideals. This is especially the case in theocracies. Another example of media bias, which tends to occur in Islamic countries and in the US as well, is the presentation of facts that shows a national versus international bias. In most cases, when key world issues are discussed in presentation of the news in the US, these issues are discussed in terms of how they are perceived by Americans. They are not discussed in terms of how they are perceived by the world, in most cases. Part 3. It is quite interesting to watch news reports from other countries, now widely available on different cable networks that report news concerning US international issues. These stories tend to differ greatly from those presented by traditional US media. They may also have some media bias. An Irish news station might examine US decisions in relation to how this affects Ireland. Often, British news stations take more of a global view, but media bias may still exist. One of the advantages to global communication as we now have it is that we do have access in this country to global views of our politics. One can read blogs from Sweden, listen to Al Jazeera, read Chinese newspapers, or watch television that critiques our society. This access has a way of counteracting media bias because it allows for people to examine news themselves in greater context. However, some prefer media bias because it presents information to them which reinforces their own opinions. Listening 3. Social media and the Middle East.
Hello again, this is Peter Howard with the University of South Florida, and I'm here with Kelly Burns, expert in social media at the university. She's an assistant professor in the Department of Mass Communications and an author on social media and celebrity. Welcome again, Kelly. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Peter. Nice to see you.
So, when we look at what's happening in Egypt and what's happened in Tunisia, and again, what seems to be bubbling in other countries over in the Middle East, I just wanted to touch upon and examine a little bit what's the role of social media has played in the turmoil that's right now in that region of the world.
Well, a lot of people are calling it the Twitter revolution, which is really a simplistic way of looking at the situation. It trivializes the events that have happened and really neglects the root cause of the situation. You have to think about these countries. They've had people in power for decades. The people don't have the same freedoms that we enjoy in this country. They don't have freedom of speech, they don't have freedom of the press, and they don't have freedom of assembly. So the media in these countries, they're tightly controlled by the government, and the internet is very tightly censored. And so, these people in these countries have been using social media for a number of years to express opposition to the government, which I think is one thing that might surprise people to know. When blogging tools were made available prior to 2005, a number of people in these countries used blogs to express their dissatisfaction with the government. And when Facebook moved onto the scene a couple of years ago in these countries, they were a site for political activism. So, even a couple of years ago, people were using Facebook to organize protests and express their dissatisfaction with the government. So the nice thing about Facebook for the people in these countries is that it was integrated into their everyday lives, and it wasn't quite as targeted by the government as blogs. There are a number of bloggers over there who saw their blogs just disappear. So, this is what we are talking about in the kind of situation that these people were living under. Now, Facebook 2 years ago in Tunisia, they did turn off Facebook. So we've seen times where the government has censored what's happening on the internet for them, but it came back on, and for the most part, they have been used as a place for activism. The countries have also turned off YouTube and Dailymotion and other video sharing sites, so this also plays a big role in how all of this unfolded.
Well, I believe at the start of the uprising in Egypt, they did turn off the internet for a while.
Exactly, they did. But people are savvy, and they know how to get around that. You can use proxy servers and different things like that. There was also a service called Say Now that was provided to the people in Egypt where, when you didn't have access to Twitter, you could make a phone call and then you could communicate your tweet by phone. And this company would then tweet that for you.
Oh, okay.
So they were worked around.
It's amazing that they found these, that they had somebody researching it or somebody was letting them know how to work around this. Again, the censorship that was being attempted.
Right.
So Facebook, Twitter revolution, how do you build momentum?
Well, actually what happened in these countries is something that occurred offline that really started the revolution. So in Tunisia, there was a street vendor that was slapped and spit on by a policeman because he didn't have the proper permit to be selling in the street. He set himself on fire, and he was young. He was somewhat educated, and he was really the catalyst for what happened in Tunisia. So, something happened offline, and then people online got really energized. And so then what happened in Egypt was they saw what was happening in Tunisia. And so even though you can use social media to organize events communicate information, great tools for doing that. It did not spark the revolution, the protests. What sparked was something that happened offline.
So it seems to be having a domino effect. Now you've had also action taken in Jordan, where the king removed his government and replaced his government. You had some protests that were popping up in other countries where you wouldn't expect to see them, like Syria.
Right.
Does this... I don't know whether this goes back to as the start, but certainly something a couple of years ago after the elections in Iran that were called rigged and illegal by many people that sparked a great outpouring of protests on the street. Very large. There was a very viral video about a young woman who was shot and killed in the street. People at that time thought that there might have been a government overthrow or turnover because of those protests that took place, but it didn't quite happen.
Right.
But do you think that as you go from Tunisia to Egypt, it's just becoming more and more of a domino effect through that region as people see results?
Definitely we're seeing a ripple effect, which you can compare Tunisia and Egypt. You know, they both have the same tools at their disposal. So while the tools are great at organizing protests, communicating information, telling people what's going on, it doesn't mean that it's going to be enough to affect change in these countries, for sure. There's another thing I want to say about social media that is powerful. So, you know, I mentioned that it's a great tool for organizing protests, but it's also really great for real-time updates as to what's going on. People were glued to Twitter and Facebook to see what was going on in the streets. You wouldn't see this in mainstream media. You wouldn't even be able to get this with blogs. I mean, it's just a great... Facebook and Twitter are great tools for just knowing what's going on up to the minute. Another thing social media does for people is it says to you, you know, you're not alone here. So, you know, well, more traditional methods, it's really hard to convey that. That's something you can really see on social media, and that can be what motivates people. That they see, look at all the people that have signed up to attend this protest. And look at all the people that are expressing, you know, discontent with the government. So it's a feeling that you get by participating in social media that can be very inspiring.
Module 3. Listening 1. Sociology 1. What is sociology? The American Sociological Association describes sociology as the study of social life, social change, and the social causes and consequences of human behaviour. The ASA contends that sociologists investigate the structure of groups, organisations and societies and how people interact within these contexts. Sociology is the scientific study of society and human behaviour. This means when sociologists apply their trade, they use a rigorous methodology. The influence of society is the central question asked by sociologists when they attempt to explain human behaviour. People are social beings more than they are individuals. Our thinking and motivation are largely shaped by our life experiences as we interact with one another. According to Barkan, society profoundly shapes their behaviour and attitudes. We exist within social structure, which refers to patterns of social interaction and social relationships. Social structure, in turn, has great influence on who we are as individuals. It influences our behaviour, our attitudes, and our life chances. Social structure is complex and often contradictory. Subject areas in sociology are as varied as society itself. Sociologists can study very small social relationships involving only a few people, such as the family. They can also explore relationships in much larger social collectivities, such as organisations and institutions. Sociology may be concerned with issues revolving around social class, poverty, gender, race and ethnicity, or religion, as well as social mobility and education. Other topics may include culture, socialisation, conflict, power, and deviance. Very large social relationships, such as those between nation-states, are also the domain of sociology, as are the characteristics of the economy and political system. In fact, the whole topic of globalisation is relevant to sociologists. Within the vast field of sociology, The common denominator is people. According to Massionis and Plummer, sociology explores the forces that influence people and help shape their lives. Society shapes what we do, how we do it, and how we understand what others do. Options in life are determined in the past and are moulded by currently existing structures that provide well-established guidelines for how individuals conduct their lives. To quote Massionis and Plummer, "In the game of life, we may decide how to play our cards, but it is society that deals us the hand." Sociology requires one to look at the world critically. Peter Berger argues that students of sociology should acquire a healthy scepticism regarding overly simplified or commonly accepted conceptions of human affairs. Critical thinking is a willingness to ask any question, no matter how difficult, to be open to any answer that is supported by reason and evidence, and to confront one's own biases and prejudices openly when they get in the way. Given that sociology explores problems of pressing interest, its topics are often objects of major controversy and conflict in society itself. Rarely do sociologists preach revolt, but they do call attention to the fundamental social questions of our day. Sociology helps bring contentious issues into sharper focus. In doing so, however, feelings may get hurt and individuals may become insulted. I will probably step on everyone's toes at least once. In advance, I apologise. It's important in a class like this one that we agree to disagree. I hope that we can be as polite as possible. The general point of this class is to understand that alternate points of view exist. It is not designed to support one view over another. Stepping on toes, after all, is nothing new for sociology. Sometimes sociologists step on toes of high-ranking officials to the point where national governments advocate a policy of limiting the number of sociologists. The ASA says that sociology provides many distinctive perspectives on the world, generating new ideas and critiquing the old. Sociology, as a matter of course, utilises multiple perspectives when critiquing social phenomena. It likewise employs a wide range of methodological techniques to answer questions that have social relevance. We should come to realise that there are a variety of points of view on any given subject. These points of view are perspectives. Perspectives are limited. Social facts, therefore, are understood in the context of many perspectives, which are often complex and contradictory. Sociology is a method of organising your thoughts about society and your place in society. Listening 2. Sociology 2. Types of societies. The term society is generally used to refer to a group of organisms of the same species occupying a defined physical or geographical area. In most instances, the term society is used to refer to human groups who share a common culture. Types of human societies include hunting and gathering societies, horticultural societies, pastoral societies, agrarian societies, industrial societies, and post-industrial societies. Hunting and gathering societies are societies in which all of the dietary intake of the members of the society is obtained by some combination of hunting, trapping, collecting shellfish, fishing, and collecting edible plant materials. Horticultural societies are those societies in which the major portion of the dietary intake of the members is obtained from crops which are grown on land which is cleared by the slash and burn technique. Pastoral societies are societies in which the major portion of the livelihood of members is derived from the products obtained from herds of domesticated animals. Agrarian societies are societies which are based upon crops which are produced in conjunction with the use of the plough technique. The relatively high level of agricultural productivity in this type of society provides a situation favourable for the development of complex systems of social stratification and large permanent cities. Industrial societies began to emerge with the so-called Industrial Revolution, which is generally agreed to have its origins with the invention of the steam engine, actually several improvements in the already existing steam engine by James Watt in or around 1769 in England. Industrial societies combine science and technology with the utilisation of energy to run machines. The post-industrial societies are characterised by the use of electronic manipulation and transmission of information. The advent of radio, followed by the television, along with the development and evolution of the computer, are fundamental technological developments associated with the development of the post-industrial society. Now, let's look at the idea of ideal types of societies. The origin of the concept of ideal types is credited to the German sociologist Max Weber, who lived from 1864 to 1920. Ideal types are used in a classification system which is composed of two ideal types, each of which form the opposite extremes of the classification system. The two ideal types are exaggerations of reality and are used only for reasons of comparisons. In reality, nothing conforms perfectly to the characteristics of the ideal types. The continuum is an unbroken series of gradations representing different degrees between the characteristics of two ideal types. All of reality can be placed somewhere on the continuum. Several sociologists have used the concept of ideal types to compare and contrast different societies. Ferdinand Tönnies, 1855 to 1936, created two ideal types of societies called Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. The Gemeinschaft was a traditional, rural, agrarian society characterised by a strong sense of community with many primary relationships. The Gesellschaft was an industrial, urban, dynamic society in which secondary relationships dominated. An American sociologist, Robert Redfield, created the ideal types of folk and urban society. The folk society is a small society which is physically and culturally isolated from other societies. This society is homogeneous, stable, and has a simple division of labour. The urban society is a large, dynamic and complex society with a heterogeneous population. Howard Becker, 1899 to 1960, developed the concepts of the secular society and the sacred society. The sacred society is an isolated society with a high degree of supernaturalism and strong kinship ties. The secular society is a society based on rationality and science, characterised by formal laws and a lack of strong kinship ties. The French sociologist Émile Durkheim, 1858 to 1917, looked at ideal types of societies by examining the forces which held the society together. Durkheim called the force which held society together solidarity. Durkheim's two ideal types of solidarity are mechanical solidarity and organic solidarity. Mechanical solidarity was found in a society characterised by a simple division of labour and a morally homogeneous population that is held together by similar values and beliefs. Organic solidarity was found in a modern society that has a complex division of labour and a heterogeneous population that is held together by the members' dependency on one another. Module 4. Listening 1. Identifying Management Styles. Part 1. Staff Meeting.
As Sales Director, I'd like to thank you all for attending the second quarter sales meeting, everyone. Fatima, if I could just exclude your input as you will be leaving soon. I'll speak to you privately after the meeting about the small appliances team's figures.
Sure, Peter.
Okay, everyone, now let's get started. Does everyone have a copy of the agenda? Good. The items for today are monthly sales figures review and setting sales targets. As you know, figures this month have really gone downhill since our competitor took over their new store in Newbury. There have been significant losses in all teams' areas. White goods is the area of most concern, so let's hear from our team leader. Dave, What recommendations does your team have to improve sales?
Well, we have carried out a thorough audit of the sales figures and discovered that sales of top-loading washing machines declined. This has been the case for the last few months now.
That's significant.
Yes, we think so too. So it probably points to the fact that customers prefer front-loading machines because they use less water and electricity. We suggest phasing out top-loading machines from our product range and just displaying the front-loaders.
Well, that's a good long-term solution, but we need to improve immediate sales figures promptly. We need to get more customers through the door. I'd like your team to come up with an advertising plan to move the top-loader floor stock quickly. Dave, as you are a good team leader, I'd like you to oversee this and get your team working together.
Thank you, Peter. But don't you think the team manager, Nicole, would be better? She did a great job on the dishwashers last year after the Silent Wash product recall fiasco.
Point taken. But I want you to handle this.
I'm happy to do it, but I just think Nicole would be better suited.
Absolutely. My track record proves that I'm more than up to the task. I had the final say and full backup of my staff during the Silent Wash issue. And let me tell you, I listened to all the requests and every single suggestion made.
Thank you, Nicole, but the Silent Wash situation is a bit different to the current problem. As I said, I want Dave handling this. So, Dave, I need your pitch on my desk by Friday.
Sure, Peter.
Moving on. Sales targets for computer goods. Sam, can you give us an update of your team's figures?
Well, it's almost the end of the month and we have seen a steady increase in sales of the latest soft-feel Technicolor laptops. Sales increased by 16.5% on last month due to our in-store promotion.
And what about other figures?
All the figures have slightly improved by 5 to 8%. My team and I had a meeting and we decided that the team should work on individual products to further increase percentages. We have set new sales targets for each line. Here's the breakdown for you.
Thank you, Sam. Now, this is what we need to see. Great delegation. Rosa, as this is your first meeting as team manager, would you be able to explain the figures in home entertainment?
Sales in 3D home theatre systems have plateaued in the last 3 months. Blu-ray sales are steady, and digital sound system sales are starting to pick up.
Can you come up with an explanation for the 3D home theatre figures?
Well, we could put it down to the post-Christmas period and the fact that the novelty of 3D is starting to wear off.
So, what targets have you set for this quarter?
Being close to the end of the financial year, we estimated our sales to increase by 20%, which translates to a sales target of $100,000 for this product.
And Blu-ray and digital sound?
For Blu-ray, we have set $25,000, and for sound systems, $50,000.
Part 2. Sales Director meets with Human Resources Manager.
Good morning, Peter. I'm compiling the advertisement for the management position in small appliances. Besides the standard wording, is there anything else you would like me to add?
Good morning, Charlene. Oh, that's great. I hope the department doesn't suffer when Fatima leaves, as her product knowledge and customer service skills are first class. I'm only interested in conducting the second interview of candidates who have great product knowledge and are personable. Don't bother lining up anyone who doesn't match these criteria.
Yes, it is sad when one of our long-term staff members leaves, but it shows what good in-house training and professional development we provide. Okay, so the interviewee should have how many years' experience?
Well, the right candidate must satisfy all requirements and have great product knowledge. Customers will go elsewhere immediately if a staff member cannot answer their questions correctly. There are so many products in small appliances, and honestly speaking, I think 2 to 3 years should be realistic. There is quite a lot to know, and we pride our staff on this knowledge. It's in our slogan.
Yes, Peter, I am aware of our company's slogan. Can you give me some insight into Fatima's management style so I know who to eliminate?
Fatima's strengths include listening to her staff's suggestions and thoughts and taking them on board. She has the respect of her team members, who are supportive and loyal. Because of this style, we saw a highly motivated team, which increased sales figures substantially. As manager, Fatima always makes the final decision, but her staff know that their input is valuable. Also, she conducts monthly seminars on brand awareness, product knowledge, and information. This takes a confident and self-assured person.
Peter, I think it will be impossible to find another Fatima because she has a long history with her team and the company. For a new manager to come in and be able to produce the same sales figures and repertoire will take time and experience. Don't you think it would be better to promote one of the existing team members and hire a new person to replace them? That way, Fatima could hand over the role smoothly.
I hear what you were saying, Charlene, but as sales director, I don't feel any of her team members are capable of taking on this role. They need guidance, as most of them are in their first year of employment.
With respect, Peter, this company believes in promoting management from within, thus encouraging staff to perform and take responsibility for their positions. If I recall, Fatima was a sales assistant to begin with. She is a great example of our company culture. Through our professional development, we enhanced her skills to become an effective speaker at departmental seminars.
That being said, I firmly believe that new blood creates new motivation, and we always need to hear what is happening in the market and with our competitors. An outsider would introduce new information and make an invaluable leader for the team in this respect. Sometimes employing from within can create animosity in teams. We have good teams now. I would not like to see pettiness or jealousy between team members.
I'm sorry, Peter, but we have to advertise the position for all staff. Yes, occasionally it may occur, but that would become the concern of the HR department, not sales. If one of our existing members would like to apply, they are permitted to do so, and I will proceed with the interview.
I never disagreed with that, Charlene. I'm just telling you, when it comes to my role in the interview process, I don't want my time wasted and only ask for what I mentioned earlier.
But Peter, I'm a professional in what I do and would not...
Listening 2. Risk Management.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our annual pre-Christmas management meeting being held today, 6th of September, here at the head office in Sydney. For those of you who haven't worked with me, I am Sabrina Rossi, one of the directors, and I'll be chairing the meeting today. Other members of the board here today are Mr. Henry Dubois and Mr. Philippe Hansen. We have a lot to sort out, so let's make a start. I trust everyone has a copy of the agenda? Yes? Good. Let's begin with the first item, which is preparations for the Christmas rush. If we could start with a few words, breaking down each department's preparations, then we will discuss possible risks to trade and finally look at mitigation and avoidance plans. So Tyler, our merchandising manager, could you start us off?
Thank you, Sabrina. Well, this Christmas season is shaping up to be another roaring success for SmartMart. We have managed to secure supplies of the top 5 children's toys as voted by the kids themselves. We have the pretty Princess Penelope doll, Divas of Dance interactive dance packs, all sorts of sports 3D competitive game software, Block Stars, soft blocks for budding builders, and of course the Cook It Good range, popular with both boys and girls. The first shipments arrive next week, and we are liaising with Geraldine from Logistics to ensure that all stores receive their stock by mid-November.
If I could just ask about other best-selling Christmas goods, Tyler. Christmas cards, wrap and decorations. When should we expect them to turn up?
Well, these should arrive about the same time as the toys, Barbara.
Great. Advertising schedules. Ricky, could you fill us in on our marketing campaigns, please?
Certainly, Sabrina. We have been working closely with merchandising and design to come up with some really colourful and inspiring print ads and direct marketing catalogues with impact. Our television commercials are in production as we speak and should start appearing to coincide with the delivery of stock to the stores. Of course, our internet presence is as strong as ever with our online store. And this year, we're making full use of social media to tap into the younger generations. Finally, Liz from Human Resources has assured us that Santas will be employed and trained, ready for our in-store promotions, and Christmas casual staff advertising has commenced. She hasn't ruled out the need for contracting extra security to cope with the customer rush.
Thank you all for the updates. It appears things are going ahead very smoothly. As we are all well aware, this is the busiest time in retail and the time when risks are of a major concern. Before I allocate a risk manager, we need to identify some problems that could be brought about and discuss how we intend to sort them out. What risks do we need to prepare for?
I feel I need to speak up here. As the majority of our stock comes from China, I am concerned that it won't arrive in time due to congestion, and it's too costly to send the stock back.
We have excellent relationships with our suppliers and have already placed orders well in advance to prevent this problem.
But Geraldine, look what happened at Easter. We don't want our sales to suffer because of logistical breakdowns.
With respect, Barbara, how could anyone have foreseen the earthquake that damaged the rail networks and the tsunami that destroyed the ports?
That's precisely my point. We should have ordered our Easter stock just after Christmas.
We have arranged for one of the other major ports to receive stock should there be some problem with delivery. We are looking at transporting the stock to this port now.
My concern is that we cut it very fine with the number of products we had in the last shipment. We wouldn't want to be left empty-handed for the New Year sales.
Tyler and I have already discussed this, and he has assured me that 45% more merchandise has been ordered for this.
45%? That seems a lot.
Well, we have Christmas, New Year, and Easter sales where stock can be sold. A lot of parents prefer to buy their kids toys instead of chocolate at Easter time these days, and we also have internet sales to think of.
It's great that due to our recent experiences, we fully comprehend the impact of these risks to our business. Let's have some other suggestions of possible risks.
Can I add that our strongest competitor, Bullseye, have already started advertising the most popular toys at heavily discounted prices, and with free delivery for online purchases.
I was actually going to bring that up. We have no major risk here because we have negotiated and bought our stock at heavily discounted rates, so we can afford to match any competitor's prices.
What about online? Bullseye are our major competitor. What about delivery costs? Can we offer free delivery?
Barbara, with our bulk purchasing power, we have already factored in delivery charges and will offer free delivery after we have sold 20% of our in-house stock.
As we have discussed these concerns, I think the next step would be to approach the CEO to hire a professional crisis management advisory team to carry out a risk assessment of our business, instead of appointing one of us as a risk manager. We really aren't qualified to deal with such matters. Let's leave it to the professionals.
Great idea. We will have to work something out to budget this in. Adele, could you have a word to Ranjit in finance this afternoon? And I'll arrange a meeting with the CEO tomorrow. I think that covers everything today. Thanks for your attendance and participation, and we will schedule another meeting when the crisis management consultants are here. An email will be sent with the date and time.
Listening 3. Using social media to respond to a crisis.
Hi, my name is Ryan Elage, Chief Operating Officer for Cadero. I would like to take a few minutes to address the power situation which caused downtime with our Phoenix facility earlier this morning. At approximately 8 o'clock Central Time, utility power was cut to the Phoenix facility as well as all the buildings surrounding it. As designed, the generator turned on. Unfortunately, the automatic transfer switch failed to switch the power over to our backup power sources. Our facility operated for about 30 to 45 minutes on UPS power and battery power before it went dark. During the time that we were operating solely on UPS and battery power, we contacted all of our electrical vendors as well as building maintenance, who's responsible for the generator and the automatic transfer switch, to try to get them on site to kick it over manually. Unfortunately, time ran out and our facility went dark. Electrical engineers began working immediately to resolve the issue and were able to replace some breakers and get the transfer switch kicked over to generator power, which allowed us to start bringing services up. Shortly thereafter, utility power was actually restored to the facility. As a result of the power issue and the spikes in voltage, several of our PDUs experienced some issues, including the PDU which service our core networking equipment. While we were able to bring some servers on pretty quickly after the power outage, our core network was down and the servers were virtually unreachable. We worked hard to get those PDUs back online and working, and ultimately were able to do so. Within a couple of hours, we had over 90% of our servers back online. We understand right now that some of you are experiencing downtime. We are working on each server which has not come back up. As you can imagine, There are hardware failures associated with hard downs. This is something our engineers are working hard to get servers back up as quickly as possible. We have actually flown in staff from our San Diego data center to the Phoenix data center to assist at getting the servers up as quickly as possible. Cadero is extremely apologetic for the downtime. It's inexcusable. We know your business, like ours, relies on our data centers being up, and you've entrusted your servers to us. I can assure you that Cadero will do everything possible to rectify the situation and to ensure that it does not happen again. We intend to post another video in the days to come with a complete synopsis of exactly what happened, what we have found out, and what we are doing to correct the situation. We do thank our valued customers for the patience that they have shown during this troubling time, and we do assure you again that we are working diligently to bring all services back to normal and to earn your trust again. Thank you.